It began in the shadows, a creeping dread that spread across America. A series of explosions, each more audacious than the last, ripped through the fabric of normalcy. The targets seemed random: a university professor in Chicago, a computer store owner in Sacramento, an airline executive in Salt Lake City. The only connection: meticulously crafted bombs delivered in plain brown packages. The nation was on edge, living in fear of the unknown. Who was this phantom terrorist striking from the darkness? The media dubbed him the Unabomber, a chilling moniker that only amplified the growing sense of panic. His name was Ted Kaczynski, and he was an unlikely terrorist. Born in 1942, he grew up in a working-class suburb of Chicago. A brilliant student, Kaczynski excelled academically from a young age. He skipped 2 grades and entered Harvard University at the age of 16, a prodigy with a promising future. But beneath the surface of this gifted young man lurked a darkness that would eventually consume him. Kaczynski was a loner, socially awkward and uncomfortable in his own skin. He struggled to connect with his peers, finding solace in books and abstract thought. At Harvard, Kaczynski's brilliance continued to shine. He majored in mathematics, earning his PhD in 1967. His dissertation was so groundbreaking that it earned him a teaching position at the University of California, Berkeley. But Kaczynski's academic success did little to ease his growing sense of alienation. In 1969, at the age of 27, Kaczynski abruptly resigned from his position at Berkeley and retreated to a remote cabin he had built in the Montana wilderness. He sought solace in a simpler life, living off the land and shunning all contact with the outside world. It was in this crucible of isolation and rage that the Unabomber was born. The turning point came in 1995. The Unabomber, silent for 6 years, resurfaced with a vengeance. He sent a letter to the New York Times threatening to blow up an airplane unless his demands were met. Those demands were as shocking as they were unexpected. The bomber, it turned out, was not motivated by political ideology or religious extremism. He was driven by a deep-seated hatred of technology and a twisted desire to save humanity from itself. His weapon of choice, a 35,000-word manifesto, a rambling, often incoherent diatribe against the evils of industrial civilization. He demanded that his manifesto be published in a major newspaper, threatening further violence if his demands were not met. The authorities were faced with an agonizing dilemma: publish the manifesto and risk giving a platform to a dangerous madman, or refuse and risk further bloodshed. After much deliberation, the FBI made the difficult decision to publish the manifesto. The manifesto, published in September 1995, sent shockwaves through the nation. Among those readers was David Kaczynski, Ted's younger brother. David Kaczynski's conscience gnawed at him. The manifesto's eerie familiarity, the echoes of his brother's voice, haunted his every waking moment. The decision to contact the authorities was agonizing, a heart-wrenching betrayal of family loyalty. But the potential consequences of inaction, the thought of more innocent lives lost, weighed heavily on his mind. He knew he had to act. He reached out to the FBI, his voice trembling as he shared his suspicions. He provided them with old letters written by his brother, hoping against hope that it was a terrible mistake. The FBI took David's tip seriously, but they were also cautious. They needed concrete evidence, something to corroborate David's suspicions and link Ted Kaczynski to the bombings. The FBI launched a covert surveillance operation, dispatching agents to monitor Ted Kaczynski's remote cabin in Montana. They watched his every move, painstakingly gathering evidence, waiting for him to make a mistake. Meanwhile, a team of forensic linguists meticulously analyzed the Unabomber's manifesto, comparing it to the letters David Kaczynski had provided. They scoured the text for linguistic fingerprints, unique patterns of speech and writing style that could definitively link Ted Kaczynski to the bombings. As the investigation intensified, the nation held its breath, caught in the grip of a real-life thriller. For David Kaczynski, the wait was excruciating. Weeks turned into months as the FBI painstakingly built its case. Agents disguised as tourists and birdwatchers scoured the woods surrounding Kaczynski's cabin, searching for any scrap of evidence that could link him to the bombings. They found it in the most unexpected of places, the local library. Kaczynski, despite his reclusiveness, occasionally visited the library in Lincoln, Montana, to read newspapers and magazines. It was there in the library's records that agents discovered that Kaczynski had checked out books on bomb making and survivalism. The FBI now had its smoking gun. The library records, combined with the linguistic analysis of the manifesto and David Kaczynski's testimony, provided the probable cause they needed to obtain a search warrant for Kaczynski's cabin. On April 3, 1996, a team of FBI agents and local law enforcement officers surrounded Kaczynski's cabin. The element of surprise was crucial. Inside, the agents discovered a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. The interior of Kaczynski's cabin was a testament to his double life. It was Spartan and cluttered, the dwelling of a man living on the fringes of society. Bookshelves lined the walls, overflowing with texts on philosophy, history, and science. A makeshift workbench occupied one corner, littered with tools, wires, and electronic components. But amidst the clutter, something else caught the agent's eyes: a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside the compartment, agents discovered a live bomb identical in design to the devices used in the Unabomber attacks. The cabin was a veritable bomb factory filled with explosive materials, detonators, and timers. Agents also discovered a detailed journal, meticulously kept by Kaczynski, outlining his bombing campaign in chilling detail. The journal provided a disturbing glimpse into Kaczynski's psyche. He wrote of his hatred for technology, his belief that modern society was on the brink of collapse, and his twisted justification for his crimes. The search of Kaczynski's cabin lasted for days, as agents meticulously documented every piece of evidence. It was the culmination of years of painstaking work, the final chapter in one of the most extensive and expensive manhunts in American history. With Kaczynski in custody, the nation breathed a collective sigh of relief. The arrest of Ted Kaczynski sent shockwaves through the nation. The Unabomber, once a faceless specter of terror, had a name and a face. The image of Kaczynski, disheveled, bearded, and wild-eyed, became instantly recognizable, seared into the public consciousness. He was a far cry from the stereotypical image of a terrorist. He was a recluse, a scholar, a man who had seemingly turned his back on the very society he terrorized. His capture marked the end of an era, a 17-year reign of terror that had left the nation on edge. But it also marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with more questions than answers. The trial of Ted Kaczynski was a media spectacle, a national referendum on the nature of madness and the limits of ideology. Prosecutors painted Kaczynski as a cold, calculating killer, a domestic terrorist who had shown no remorse for his actions. They presented a mountain of evidence, including the bombs themselves, the incriminating contents of his cabin, and the chilling entries in his journal. Kaczynski's defense team, led by the renowned attorney Judy Clark, faced an uphill battle. They did not dispute that Kaczynski had committed the bombings. Instead, they argued that he was mentally ill, driven to his crimes by a severe case of paranoid schizophrenia. The jury ultimately sided with the prosecution, finding Kaczynski guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Unabomber case had a profound impact on American society, far beyond the immediate terror it inflicted. It exposed vulnerabilities in law enforcement's ability to handle domestic terrorism, particularly in an era before the internet and widespread surveillance. The case led to the creation of new forensic techniques, including linguistic analysis and DNA profiling, which would revolutionize criminal investigations in the years to come. It also sparked a national conversation about the role of technology in society, the dangers of unchecked progress, and the importance of mental health awareness. Kaczynski's warnings about the dehumanizing effects of technology struck a chord with those who felt increasingly alienated and powerless in the face of rapid technological advancement. His case became a Rorschach test, a blank slate onto which people projected their own fears and anxieties about the future. In the aftermath of the Unabomber case, the world grappled with the unsettling realization that intelligence could be a double-edged sword. Ted Kaczynski, a certified genius with an IQ estimated to be in the 160s, had used his intellect not to advance society but to terrorize it. His case challenged the notion that intelligence was inherently good, that a high IQ was a guarantee of success, happiness, or moral virtue. It forced people to confront the uncomfortable truth that brilliance could coexist with darkness, that genius could be twisted and corrupted by mental illness, ideology, or simply a profound sense of alienation. Kaczynski's story became a chilling reminder that the human mind, for all its capacity for good, was also capable of great darkness. It underscored the importance of nurturing not just intellectual growth, but also emotional intelligence, empathy, and a sense of connection to something larger than oneself. The question of what drove Ted Kaczynski to become the Unabomber has been the subject of endless speculation and debate. Was he a victim of mental illness, driven to violence by a paranoid and delusional worldview, or was he a cold, calculating terrorist who consciously chose to inflict pain and suffering on others? The answer, like most things in life, is likely a combination of factors. Kaczynski's mental health history is well documented. He suffered from social anxiety, depression, and what some experts believe was paranoid schizophrenia. His writings are filled with paranoia, delusions of grandeur, and a profound sense of alienation from the world around him. But mental illness alone cannot explain Kaczynski's crimes. He was also driven by a radical ideology, a deep-seated hatred of technology, and a belief that modern society was on a path to self-destruction. The tragedy of Ted Kaczynski is that he was both a victim and a perpetrator. The Unabomber case, though officially closed, continues to cast a long shadow over American society. It serves as a chilling reminder of the power of a single individual to sow terror and disrupt the lives of millions. The case also highlights the enduring challenges of balancing security concerns with civil liberties in a free society. The widespread surveillance and data collection methods employed by law enforcement agencies in the wake of the Unabomber attacks raised concerns about privacy violations and the erosion of civil liberties. The debate over the appropriate balance between security and freedom continues to this day, fueled by the ever-present threat of terrorism and the rapid advancement of technology. The Unabomber case also serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of addressing mental health issues and providing adequate support for those who are struggling. Kaczynski's story highlights the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness, both for the individual and for society as a whole. It underscores the need for greater awareness of mental health issues, improved access to treatment, and a reduction in the stigma associated with seeking help.